just when I thought we could go a full 24 hours without the President of the United States doing something unconstitutional, here we are. Hey, everybody, it's Nate Charles, back with you for another thought of the day. It's September 15, 2025. Today, I want to talk about the U.S. striking a second drug smuggling ship in the Caribbean. Reports say it was hit with a missile, and the administration is treating it like a counter-cartel campaign. Here's the real question. Does the president actually have the legal authority to do this? The answer is kind of. Let's start with the basics. After Vietnam, Congress passed the War Powers Resolution of 1973. It was designed to stop presidents from dragging the United States into wars without congressional approval. There's also a formal provision in the U.S. Constitution about Congress being the branch of government that's responsible for declaring war, but that's actually been somewhat obviated by the War Powers Resolution. The law says that if the president sends U.S. forces into hostilities, he has to notify Congress within 48 hours. And if he wants to keep those forces in combat beyond 60 days, plus an additional 30-day withdrawal period, he needs explicit congressional authorization, usually through what we call an authorization for the use of military force, or an AUMF. Now, arguably, the president is okay right now because these hostilities have not lasted more than 60 days. But once we hit that 60-day mark from the first strike, which will be on November the 2nd, 2025, they'll need congressional authorization to keep going. Now, there is an authorization for the use of military force currently in effect. After 9/11, Congress passed such an authorization, what we're going to call the 2001 AUMF. It gave the president the power to use all necessary and appropriate force against those who planned, authorized, committed, or aided the 9/11 attacks, and against groups that harbored them. Over time, various presidential administrations have stretched that to cover so-called associated forces, which is how the United States has justified operations against al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and then eventually ISIS. Now, under President Obama, there was at least a system in place to make sure that targets outside of declared war zones, that is Iraq and Afghanistan, actually fit under the 2001 authorization for the use of military force. Any strike outside a declared theater had to go through a formal process, an intelligence review, a legal review, and confirmation that the target was covered by the AUMF. That was meant as a safeguard, so we weren't just hitting whoever we wanted, wherever we wanted. And here's the problem. The 2001 AUMF simply does not cover drug cartels, doesn't cover smuggling ships in the Caribbean, and unless the administration can show that these cartels are directly tied to al-Qaeda or ISIS, and there is no evidence of that whatsoever, the current AUMF does not apply, which means after the 60-day clock runs out on November the 2nd, there is no statutory basis for these strikes at all. Bottom line is this. There is no standing authorization from Congress that lets the president conduct counter-drug bombing campaigns in the Caribbean. This is a policy we want to pursue. Congress must debate it, vote on it, and give the president clear guidance. Otherwise, we're sliding into an undeclared war by executive fiat. That is exactly what the War Powers Resolution was meant to prevent. Thanks for listening. I'll be keeping track of the story and breaking down the legal angles for you as it develops. If you find this helpful, share it, subscribe, and let's keep this conversation going. Have a good night.